Bonjour and welcome to Tarmac. I am Dave.
And I'm Matthew, and yes, we are still around, and we're back with another car. Don't even ask about the hair.
And lockdown hairdo, you gotta love it.
Well, at least we have something pretty hair racing today, and that is this, the Mercedes-Benz E63 AMG S.
That's right, it's the 5th generation facelift, and what a beautiful face it is. And it's elegant, it's exciting, it's smarter, and boy, it's fun to drive. But let's take a look around it first. In true facelift fashion, this new E-Class has actually got a bit of a new face. And in particular, this Panamericana grille, which really is part of the trademark now of the AMG branding. So if you've got a Panamericana grille, you've got an AMG, not bad at all. Looking along the rest of it, you've got a twin power dome across the bonnet here. Wow, that's hot. Flatter headlights, which are LED and matrix, or multi-LED things, so you can black out spots on the way through. It comes with this lovely jet wing lower valance here. It's got 3 air vents, and I think we counted roughly 4 radiators, so plenty of air to cool down this massive engine that we'll get to soon. Round the side, our review model comes in this selenite magno grey. I don't have any idea what that means, but the actual effect is this sort of matte finish that is absolutely stunning. I mean, probably a pain in the rectum to actually maintain, but man, it's a good looking colour, and it really does stand out nicely. Massive 20-inch AMG wheels, and look behind here, ceramic brakes, which are actually a 15 grand option, but they will pull this car up to a stop so quick. I'll see if we can show you that later, and believe me, with a vehicle that goes this fast, you do want to be stopped. It's wider than the actual regular E-Class by about 1 inch, so actually made by these nice big wheel arches that are flared both front, not so much in the rear, but certainly at the front. Obviously it's a V8 bi-turbo, again we'll get to that in a while. This one comes with the panoramic view, so panoramic, lots of pans going on here, but look at it, such a strong shoulder line, and some extra wide flares down here for your sills. Round the rear, just like the front, the rear has had a facelift as well, or a tail lift, I don't know how that goes on. It's got a nice boot lip spoiler here, which is colour coded, again in that, anyway, you know what I mean, it's beautiful. E63S, so lovely badging. The tail lights here now come into the boot lip here, or into the boot here, and again they're LEDs, so you know what's going on, and connected via this nice chrome strip. Looking down the bottom here, you've got some exhaust tips, which they are a little bit dirty. They are fake, but they're a little bit dirty. Trapezoid in shape, and also titanium sort of finish to them, a matte titanium, so beautiful. Again, as far as rear ends go, just like the face, not bad at all. Let's look under the bonnet. Under here is a 4-litre bi-turboed V8 attached to a 9G MCT speed shift gearbox. Together they give you 450 kilowatts, 850 newton meters, 850, it's massive. Our engine's been hand built by Andreas, and that makes it, not necessarily sure that this works together, but that means that this actual E63S will go from 0 to 100 in 3.4 seconds, so that's pretty good. This is a 4-wheel drive, so it does have the 4MATIC undercarriage basically, so as far as that goes, but it's also, you can adjust the stuff up front and get all that power stuck just to the back rear wheels, so not something you'd have on a rainy day. Speaking of something you don't want to see on a rainy day, Matthew's inside and he'll show you all about what's going on in there.
Now, even though this might not be, I guess, so much fun to drive in rainy days, depending on what your definition of fun is, of course. On the inside here, rainy day, sunny day, it's such a nice place to be, this cabin. And it really echoes that famous Mercedes quality that we know and love. So even everything from the shutting the door to, shaking the panel, stuff like that, everything is screwed in so well, like a proper Mercedes. Of course, this is the E63S AMG, so you would expect leather and nothing else. And of course, you do get leather. Plenty of it, in fact. On the top of the dashboard there, on the door cards, right up to the bottom, which is then covered in soft plastic at the very bottom. So everything is soft to touch and very nice. The seats as well, they are leather and Alcantara. This car has the optional AMG bucket seats and with really solid bolsters that keep you in place when you're going around the track. And this car really has been made for going around the track. Make no mistake, this is no family sports sedan, though it can be. That's the beauty of something like this AMG. Speaking of that quality, in the middle you get this lovely wood grain finish, which feels really soft to touch and has been sanded back really nicely, but it still has all the grains and stuff like that, so giving you that proper sense that there's real luxury to this E-Class. The biggest talking point obviously with this interior is actually the steering wheel, which has been upgraded now. It's a mixture of both leather and Alcantara on the sides. Feels really nice to touch. It's got a nice little biplane look to it here with the twin spokes on either side. And the buttons have now been replaced with this sort of haptic feedback button, if you'd like to call it. Behind the steering wheel, of course, you get nice chunky aluminium paddle shifters, and they do say up and down to give you clarity in case you forgot which way either one goes. While this is the 2021 E63S AMG, it does have the old style layout of Mercedes' infotainment screen. But in saying that, there's nothing wrong with that, because it firstly is a really high-tech system, and it's something that we've become accustomed to with Mercedes over the last few years. You have shortcut buttons in the middle here, everything that you really want to play around with, so including the car's modes, the suspension settings, the exhaust, dynamic exhaust, and then you have a few more shortcuts over here, including one that directly takes you to the car settings. And while this infotainment screen may be set up like the older versions, it does have a couple of unique features that are new for this E63S AMG. So let's take a closer look at that. Now this is pretty interesting. When you bring your hand close to whichever option you want to select on the screen, it'll actually highlight it and make it a bit more prominent. So you can either do a funny game like that and keep tricking the system. But anyway, let's take a look at these two options, which is really where you want to be with this infotainment screen. So firstly, track pace. When you go into that, it'll tell you about racetracks nearby. Obviously we don't have that many here in New Zealand, but in Europe you can have things like Silverstone, Spa and Monza, all the other famous tracks that you could go to. And once you're in there, it'll show you a map of the track. It'll allow you to use the stopwatch to time your laps and basically give you instructions on how to better yourself on your lap times. You can even go into drag race mode and view various G-forces and all the other telemetry that you might need to use when you're racing. So it is a car properly set up for that. So the carbon ceramic brakes are not just for show, which is nice to know, of course. And then once you're in the AMG performance mode, you can tune the vehicle, the engine, the suspension and stuff like that. And you can even create your own unique configurations of how you want everything set up, basically. So those are two really interesting features on here, and I guess show Mercedes' continued dedication towards the AMG and the performance arm of their brand. And speaking of the performance arm of this brand, the proof of the pudding, or the proof of this AMG, is of course in the driving. So I think that's the right thing to do at this point.
Now, one of the hidden secrets of this normally sedan is the fact that it has drift mode, and that is a case of going into, or to get drift mode, that is a case of going into race, switching off the traction control, which is down, hold for a few seconds, then it will go off, putting the gearbox or the 9-speed box into manual, then holding back on both the paddles to bring that deck, and then you'll see drift mode comes up here. Put the paddle up and drift mode is active. Of course, trying to pull away in that is going to make the back wheel spin, and we don't want to do that. We'll save that for a track day. But there you go, that's how you do drift mode in the E-Class. So here we're just going to do a drag race pull away at 0 to 100. Simple way, it's set up on the drag race on there. You put your foot on the brake, up you go with your race start, and away you go. And that, according to the stats here, says we just did 3.49 seconds,
Oh.
which is exactly, or virtually exactly, what the says on the paperwork. Brilliant.
Be careful though not to have a bit of lunch before you do that.
So the E63, or the AMG version of the E63, can trace its roots back to I think it's the early 90s, where you've got the 500E, which was also nicknamed the Hammer, and certainly putting the hammer down is a great thing to do in this vehicle. This is obviously the latest iteration of it, and what an iteration it is. It's such a fast car, and yet it's also, so when you're in comfort, such a nice, executive vehicle. So it does cater to all manner of people, but the one you really want is the fast bit.
It's really surprising actually for a car with 850 newton meters of torque and this massive V8 at the front and the four-wheel drive system and all that stuff. It does kind of tootle around town just fine. The suspension isn't too hard, it's not too noisy, it's pretty comfortable to be in generally, and it doesn't have such a big problem with going slow on normal roads, and that's really surprising for such a performance car as this is.
Yeah, I think it's down to the 9 gears it's got to select from. I mean, it is a speed shift, so it's quick to get them, but it really chooses the nice or the perfect gear regardless of where you are, and it's always spooling these turbos ready to, so you're not left wondering which gear you should be in or what speed you should be going at. Certainly when you get to the potholes, there is, whichever sort of drive mode you're in, it is quite firm, and so you can feel the stuff, particularly in these seats. It's quite good. It's quite rough, but then saying that, like I said before, you're going to want to be in sport mode and sport plus and possibly even race, and therefore there's no body roll. Zero.
And in some of our rough New Zealand roads, this probably will make a bit of noise, especially with those very low profile tires and nice wide rubber on it. But I mean, you're not really complaining about all that kind of stuff when the noise and the sensation that you get from driving this car is so incredible as it is.
Visibility, it's pretty good. It's there's no compromise in the back windows. You've got 3 headrests, but the middle one just drops down nicely, so you can see straight out of there. Mirrors are good. Obviously the driving aid suite or safety suite in Mercedes is massive. Everything from adaptive cruise to blind spot to rear cross traffic, everything you can think of. It's got a head-up display, so realistically you don't have to look anywhere but ahead and driving. Steering wheel is awesome. I actually really like this biplane look, and although I'm not the biggest of fans on this haptic touch, it seems okay. And also, if you want the volume control for the Burmester and stuff like that, there are still some manual things to go through there.
And just to keep things nice and consistent, it has 850 newton meters of torque, as you know, but also that Burmester audio system has something like 850 watts of power. So
what? 800? I was gonna dad joke.
And actually, this is a dad car, if you like. You can seat 5, take your kids to their various after-school activities, and then go for a nice blast around the track on the weekend. So it's pretty good at doing a bit of both. Don't forget that you can also have it as a wagon version, which is possibly one of the biggest benefits of the E63 AMG is the fact that it offers both. So if you need that little bit more practicality and storage space, it's there for you as an option.
So as Matthew says, once you're free and clear of the city roads and the towns and things like that, and you have dropped the kids off and you are looking to have a little bit of fun, you find some nice country roads, drop it down into Sport or Sport Plus. The exhaust baffles open, so there's more sound coming through the exhaust, and everything is so much more responsive. The throttle's so much more responsive. The air suspension tightens up. The steering is progressive, so if you're going to go faster, it basically gives a little bit more weight to the steering wheel, and everything just feels firmer and like a sports car.
And don't forget that it is no slouch at all in comfort mode as well. All you need to do is just push the accelerator a bit and it just goes. And then as you can imagine, all that is just tightened up and sped up when you go into Sport Mode, Sport Plus, and then of course race mode.
Yeah, the joys of race modes are obvious as far as it takes this mild-mannered, semi-mild-mannered E63 V8 into the stratosphere. Everything is designed to have more fun on the track, even giving you, as Matthew pointed out, different race tracks to play with. And just sounds more alive and makes you more alive. Genius.
And all that power is kept in check because it has got some really wide tires both at the front and at the back. I think it's 295 millimeters at the back, so plenty of stuff to keep you stuck to the ground. And what's really interestingly rather tailored to this car is that the fact that those Mercedes AMG engineers have thought of every little thing to make this a super sedan. So even the turbos, for example, are mounted in the V of the 8-cylinder engine, which means that the air actually doesn't travel as much distance to get to the turbos as it would, in a traditionally turbocharged car. So, and there's probably plenty of other tidbits of areas where they've been so crazily German about the design and the practicality and performance of this car that we can't even imagine. All we know that it's pretty superb to drive.
But as we know, the Germans are not really renowned for their sense of humour. But what they have done is given a drift mode in here, and we'll see if we can show you, certainly off the line, how fast it goes. And also it has an electronic LSD that basically can be manipulated to give you just a rear wheel drive. So it will go from the formatic 4-wheel drive for that comfort and peace of mind of having 4 wheels to a 2-wheel rear wheel drive that gives you 850 newton meters of torque to just 2 wheels.
And can you imagine all of that in this, the E, the most Mercedes of Mercedeses, the most sensible of the entire Mercedes range, and it has a crazy drift mode where you can send all the power to the rear.
Isn't the E mode? Isn't the E class generally a cab in the UK, in the most of Europe? Like this is a very fast cab. So there you have it, the 2021 E63S. It's a facelift, and it does have a prettier face. It's very much more technically advanced. Love the new steering wheel, and it's something that the family can enjoy, or you can enjoy much more when you drop them off.
It's just mind-boggling to think about how much power this thing has, but the fact that you can control it to an extent that you can either make it like a sedentary family sedan, or you can have a track weapon. The choice is yours.
You just got to have this car. It's brilliant fun. Love it. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. Really appreciate you joining us on this one. There will be more. I think we've got a lineup of Mercedes coming up, and a few other toys that are going to come along. So lots to show you, lots to play with.
We're back, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.